Good evening, everyone. Hope all is well. Back with this live session again to spread knowledge, share the positivity. And today we've got a doctor all the way from the US who I've been speaking to quite a few times on LinkedIn. We also discussed property, and she is here with us today. Let me just send her the link. And she's going to be talking about medicine, what she does as a doctor, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be good. Let's just wait for her. Here we go.
Oh my God, it's working.
That was easy, wasn't it?
It was a lot easier than what you think.
It it wasn't that complicated. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy.
Well, it's like when you're piecing some stuff together, you're thinking, okay, so like I've done this before on Facebook, and this can't be that difficult.
Exactly.
It's like, oh my God. And now
So sure.
I'm going to just go back. I was just trying to open something up that I have just so I have some stuff in front of me. So, okay, what are we going to do?
You are slightly, yeah, I've got you now, but your connection is slightly pixelated. I mean, I can see you're a bit pixelated on here. So maybe it's your
Um,
internet or something. I don't know. But it wouldn't be, right?
let
You're
me
up
just
in the US, so I'm
let
sure
me
it's good.
just no, that doesn't mean anything. I'm in the country, so I just wanted to just check what my Wi-Fi is. No, it's on the booster, my telephone.
Okay,
So maybe I have,
okay.
make sure. Let me.
Sorry, everyone. We're having some connectivity issues, but let's see. Hope to get it sorted. Um, Here we go. We're good. We're good.
All
Um,
right.
so, Dr. Pat, thank you so much for taking out the time today, joining me on this live session in my mission to spread knowledge and spread the positivity, whatever you can bring to this live session today. It's a 30-minute live session, so whatever you can talk about, make it someone's while when they watch the live. So, it's all about just spreading knowledge. So, thank you for joining me today.
Well, I'm very, very happy to be here. And one of my favorite things to do in my life is data dump and share knowledge. So
Absolutely.
we're a perfect match.
Super.
We are.
Um, Dr.
Yeah.
Pat, without further ado, I mean, I've already introduced who I'm speaking today, but if you could introduce yourself as to who you are, you're all the way up in the US, you've taken out time from your busy schedule today. So introduce yourself as to who you are and what exactly is it that you do within your profession.
Well, I help busy professionals and actually I like to help everybody fix their health, maintain high energy, productivity within a day, implementing simpler, faster ways to get good results that are measurable and up their self-care for themselves and for those that matter.
That is such a good, I mean,
Yeah.
you're a doctor and you're actually, obviously doctors help people, but then also there are doctors who help in building health, and you're doing an amazing job by doing it. So let's get into it. Before we move forward, I like to ask this to all my guests that come on here, whether, when we were growing up as kids, and I'm taking you quite a few years back into your childhood, into your teenage years, when you're growing
I'm not
up and
that
you
old.
think that you have all these careers that you look in front of you, whether it's a lawyer, a doctor, an architect, an engineer. I mean, what is it that inspired you? What career inspired you to get into it when you were a young girl?
Well, I can tell you when I was growing up, I always played the doctor. I never played the nurse. I never played the patient. I always played the doctor. And I
Okay.
grew up in an all-boy neighborhood. For 6 blocks, I was the only girl. So if
No
I wanted
way.
to, yeah, I was the only girl. And so if I was going to
Wow.
play, if I wanted to have a playmate, then I needed to play sports. And so, I played football, the American like touch football until my father told me that I was going to get injured because the boys were starting to play too rough. And,
Okay.
I played baseball. I played and years ago, I played in the playoffs um, for the women's softball league. And
Okay.
that I was in college and somebody asked me, can, can you pitch? And I said, oh yeah, softball? I said, oh yeah, I played softball for 9 years as a kid.
Wow.
And so, we did, we did all sorts of crazy things when we were like, kids. I always thought that I could train bees. And my father came out, I was I caught bees, put them in a jar, and I was rolling them.
Okay.
And my father came out and he goes, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm training bees. He goes, how do you think you're going to do that? And I said, well, I'm going to roll them back and forth. And when they go too crazy, they won't be buzzing around. They'll just sit still. And my father said, I think when you take the top off, you might want to stand a good 5 feet away. And he turned around and walked away. Good luck.
So
But I had
growing
to,
up, yep,
it was funny.
growing up in a neighborhood where it was sort of male dominated, and then also going into sports, when did the whole doctor, medicine, medical sort of field hit you and you were like, yep, this is what I want to do?
Well, I have one particular, like, I was always very good in science.
Okay.
And, when I was 9, came in second place in the state. Unbeknownst to me, my teacher sent my science project in. But when I went to college, I really didn't have a direction. And I went to college and started taking a bunch of courses, but I always took science courses and I always took pre-med. And I had a friend of mine who went to chiropractic school and said, you're going to do this. And I went, I don't think so. They're quacks. I mean, chiropractors that's not for me. And
Okay.
then I injured myself and I went into a doctor's office. And when I was in there, I totally did not like this guy. And I'm thinking, if he can do this, so can I. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, it was so evident to me. And I realized that my shoulder, and right after I left his office, because I didn't see him,
Yep.
my friend came back from chiropractic school and I said, I'm coming. And the rest was history. I had incredible teachers. I had people who stretched my brain cells to think out of
Yep.
the box,
Absolutely.
and so like when something happens, it's like, well, what's the solution? I kept on getting a cold. And one of my teachers said when I was at school, and they would last 3 weeks. I mean, I had like congestion from my head to my throat, from my throat to my chest, back up to my head. And he said, go get a jug of water, put enough lemon juice in it to make it cloudy. Don't eat anything
Yep.
else because you want to give your digestive system in those situations, time to, like get better and not have to be so stressed
Yep.
out. And drink that water.
Yep.
I literally had no cold, cause I fought him, just like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Like people typically do. And then
Okay.
I did it one time because I had such a bad cold and it was gone. It was gone in 24 hours.
No way.
It was amazing. I mean, of course, drinking that much water, you're in the bathroom a lot, but it was gone. And I put so much lemon juice in it. I knew I put too much in when I was breathing and I could smell lemon. So, but it was really, it's like those things that started to happen. I took those pieces and I shared those tools with people. So I have a lot of, like remedies. You know, like I had some guy one time who had kidney stones, and I said, no, I said, you better clear this with your medical doctor before you do this. But one of my teachers said to do X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to do it here, but it involved like asparagus and it involved Coca-Cola, but you've got to put it in the right combination. And so, you know, he did it. And he called me up because I'm about ready to kill you. And then the next day he goes, you are so wonderful. I sent 3 people to you today. Because he said, you know, it was really uncomfortable because when you have that much carbonation in the dosage that, you know, as an over-the-counter type remedy.
Yep.
You know, and you also got to really, you know, and something like that, I said, you really have to check with your medical doctor because you don't want to have, you know, be in the middle of the night, have a secondary problem and going to ER for no apparent reason. You know, so you got to make sure, like, you know, can I do this? Is this in an earlier stage? So I'm not going to be doing more harm than good, you know, in that. But it was one of those, like, a funny, you know, memory that I have from being in practice. And I've been in practice for over 38 years.
Wow. And
yeah.
Throughout these 38, I mean, you're very much talking about remedies right now. So are you a true believer that remedies work more than drugs do?
Well, you have to understand where medications get their start from. I mean, even in homeopathy, you know, most medications get their start from plants, you know, and there's chemicals in plants that help, you know, that help certain things like dandelion leaves, you know, are really good for gallbladder and good for liver. And so there's certain plants that have better, you know, that work better for, to eat. So like if you're eating green leafy vegetables, they're very high in calcium and magnesium. And you need those kind of things for muscles so your muscles don't cramp.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things.
And through that, I mean, that's what I think is sort of distinguishes remedies from drugs, like how you can use naturally sourced ingredients than to just go and have medicine. I mean, you know, it's easy to have medicine, but then it's time consuming to sort of get a remedy together. Like maybe even if it's hot water, ginger and lemon, you know, you have to boil the water.
I know you like that.
Absolutely.
Well,
I mean,
but you have to remember like that, like all medications get their base from plants.
Of course.
You know, in chemical constituencies in the plant. So when you take plants as a remedy, you might have to take a lot more of them because they figured out in big pharma, figured out what, you know, is, you know, what is like one pill would be, you know, how many pounds. Like for instance, if anybody uses essential oils, like a 15 milliliter bottle of peppermint is around 50 pounds of peppermint. That's a lot.
That is
just for one bottle. So it's, you know, that's why, you know, essential oils are so, they're powerful also because they're very concentrated.
Yep.
You know, so when people look at, you know, and it's like when you're balancing your diet out, you know, you have to take a look at proteins, fats, and carbohydrates.
Of course.
And you have like, well, are those balanced? You know, there's pretty much a simple way to take a look at that. They give people the percentages, like of how to look at a plate, and as such. So, you know, it's like, it's an easy way to do it is just eat, you know, good source of protein and eat a good source of a lot of green leafy vegetables and throw in some color.
And keep away from carbohydrates and fat.
Yeah, well, our plants are carbohydrates. A carbohydrate is a carbohydrate is a carbohydrate.
Yeah.
There's just some of them that are more complex. There's complex and simple. The simple carbohydrates are like, you know, never put, you know, fructose in your mouth. You know, it's probably, you know, like the corn syrup.
Yeah.
And what's cool in England is like, you know, if you look at a bottle of Heinz ketchup there and you read the ingredients and you come to the States and you read the ingredients on Heinz, it's like, where did all these other stuff come in? Why is that so different? Why does Heinz make a much better product for you guys in the UK as opposed to us in the United States? I mean, I only buy organic. If I can buy organic, if there's a choice.
Yep. And
my recommendation is if you can buy organic versus non-organic, buy the organic. You know, if it's in your budget, or buy as much organic as you possibly can. Because your body's a temple. and it's
Yep.
got to have fuel to burn. And if you put the right fuel together, then you won't get sick. You know, people get sick from three things, basically: trauma, thoughts, and toxins. And thoughts can undo any good that you do about the trauma, which is all the inflammation in the joints, you know, structures function. And then, you know, the toxins are like the food that you eat, the air that you breathe, the water you drink, the chemicals that you clean your house, and people never read the labels. But some of those things are very, very bad for you.
Wow. I mean, you're
Yeah.
going into real detail, everyday life detail. And that's what
Yeah, I do this.
people sort of forget, how to sort of live their life with whether it's food, whether it's medicine, whatever it is, how to sort of balance their diet to live a healthy life. I mean, absolutely amazing. So tell me about, I mean, we spoke briefly last week when we were having our Zoom call, and you mentioned that you've been into different countries all over the world to study medicine, and how have you done it? What sort of made you go from country to country to study different kind of medical, have different kind of medical experiences?
Well, you know, I'm also an acupuncture physician.
Yep.
So before I became an acupuncturist, back in 1996 or something like that, or 92, I was invited to go with a group of doctors from the United States to China to study a course in Tuina. And
Okay.
Tuina is very similar to chiropractic in a way, because it's a type of massage that works structure and helps with structure. And then the advanced forms of Tuina is actual adjustments that are very similar to chiropractic.
Okay.
So I went to China to learn this, and we went into Chinese herbal rooms, which were heavenly. They were really wonderful.
Okay.
And you know, and I've also, you know, I have a lot of colleagues that are in the UK and in France and in Italy and in Spain. When I was in Egypt on a field trip, so to speak, with a bunch of friends, a friend was very, very sick, and a medical doctor was, you know, listening to her heart and things like that. And I walked into the room, and I'm like, get out of bed, sit up, what do we got going on here? And I adjusted her, and this guy, his mouth was on the ground. And, you know, we got to get going. We have dinner to go to, you know, we can't miss that. And so I adjusted her, and this medical doctor just said, what did you do? I mean, he saw the difference in her, from being like, I'm going to like stay in bed all night long, to like the color coming back in her face, you know, coming out. He goes, I would not have, if you told me, I would not have believed it. And so that was a good exposure for him. And then he kept on saying, can you adjust me? You know, and so I've had, you know, those situations, you know, like that, you know, no matter where I have encountered people when I've traveled. That's good.
I mean, all these stories to hear right now, it's so amazing. So I want to talk about this pandemic, and every doctor that I've had so far, I've had 3 doctors now. And every time a doctor comes on, I'm sort of intrigued to talk about the pandemic. Where are we with it? What is going on in the world? I mean, the media says something, the government says something, the hospitals say something. Now there's a vaccine out. Where are we going with it? What's the cause of that? And if they, I mean, I don't want to talk about what I believe in, but what was the cause of this, if this happened, and where are we going with it? How are countries, governments, doctors trying to put this together for the betterment of people and the economy? Because it's everywhere is going down. What is happening
Well,
out here?
you know, I certainly, you know, when I look at, have you ever done the 9 dots?
No.
Anyone, like, you know, you see like 9 dots and you have someone draw 4 lines.
Okay.
In order to solve that problem, if you're going to draw 4 lines that are continuous on like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, it's imminent that you would have to go outside the box. So I always describe people's box as like, you know, that's what you know your reality is, and that's what you've been taught for a solution. Just because it's there doesn't mean the solution's not outside. And sometimes to get a solution, you have to go outside.
Okay.
The biggest thing that I notice in society is that there's way too many sick people who don't know that they're sick. And there's a lot of people who have things that are brewing and submerged underneath the surface, that their health is just not good. And they don't know it. And they don't know it until they get in contact with the flu, have a microorganism, or they have, a coronavirus. Coronavirus has been around since the 50s. It's just mutated. So it isn't something new. And in Chinese medicine, like when you're testing somebody, and I don't know exactly about the test in the UK, but when they're doing the swab test on you, the coronavirus, if it's up in your throat, it doesn't mean that it's in your body. It means that it's up in your throat. And a lot of times when people start to get sick, and they get a virus or they get a cold or they get that tickle, you gargle with Listerine, you gargle with vinegar, you do something, right? And then you don't get it. So you can test, I tell people, you get tested and you test positive for COVID, go back 3 days later. And test again, because it could be very different. So in Chinese medicine, they would call that an exterior situation that was in this area. It doesn't mean that it's going to go interior. It depends upon your immune system, and it depends upon proactive things that you can do.
So when they do the swab test, does it go down, do they take it down the throat, or do they just do it from the side?
They take it in the back of the throat and they take it up in the nose. I would never let anybody put something up my nose that far. The membrane up there is so fragile, it's just like, for me, it would be a long day to happen,
So if the government knows, if the doctors know that things like this are so fragile, why are they inclined to do these tests? Why are they putting people?
Well, because they're looking to have validation, and it's just like when you have a pandemic, you have to have enough numbers to make it a pandemic, or it's no longer a pandemic, it's an epidemic. And if you don't have the numbers for that, then it has to become a, just flu season.
But numbers can be just given out, right? I mean,
well, I don't know if I trust numbers, like the numbers that they say they have, because I like who counted them, and and what was the method. Look at the problem in the United States right now in the election. It's pretty clear. I mean, I've had personal friends that have gone places and they tried to give them a Sharpie in order to vote, on paper thing, but that will be thrown out immediately. So people who voted with a Sharpie, their vote didn't count. And and then there's the actual counting of those numbers and if they're accurate or not. So it's a big mess. And, here, and, and it happens, and if it's true, there was a doctor who I really like a lot, who's an MIT graduate. He's brilliant. He's got more than a couple degrees and ran for state senate in Massachusetts. And, it's just like, if you go and look at his name was Dr. Shiva. If you go and look up Dr. Shiva's history and that race,
is he on Twitter? He's on Twitter. He's posted quite a few things on Twitter.
He might be, but he probably got censored. I mean, because a couple times on Facebook, Facebook took stuff down from him too.
Yes.
I mean,
I've read his tweets. I've seen what he's done. I mean, I think I saw one of his video, and he said that. Are you talking about the coronavirus? I mean, as a human, I think, did he say 4 billion viruses around you at a given time? Something like that.
Oh yeah, you live it. It's like that's why having an immune system is really important. So in my book, the book that we talked about a little bit, Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired? It's a survey of all your organ systems. And if you have you could have a low immune score, but you could have high scores other places. There's 11 systems that you're looking at. It's the first basic test without going to a doctor. But if you did the test and you went to the doctor, you would have hey, this is what's really going on. How come we're not looking at this? Or shouldn't we be looking, what kind of tests can we do to verify this over here? But the thing is that you can have a strong immune system, that's kicking out, but it can eventually be depleted because the other organ systems are, are taxing it. So you can find out what your weakest link is, and then you know where to spend time, energy, and money fortifying that organ system and
Yeah.
finding out, like, like, what do I do to correct it? How do I start my health journey? Because it doesn't matter what diagnosis you have. It matters what you have in your environment that is contributing to the fact. I mean, you go places and people have those Glade air freshener things, the plug-ins. They should throw those away. They're carcinogenic. Why they still allow those being made and given out and use them, I immediately get a headache when I walk into some place, and I don't have any allergies. I don't have any
Yeah.
sensitivities.
But
But
is
when
this
I
is
smell those
this
things, it's like, oh my God, you got to get rid of that. There's nothing natural about that at all.
Yep.
And so that, back on this COVID thing, in the numbers, I would be hard pressed. I mean, for me and many of my colleagues, and what I am aware of is that the credibility of certain people in the United States, they're losing their credibility. The people who like those people are people who are really stuck to the media, and also like who listen to CNN. I was at an Airbnb in the beginning of this, and the person who was there was listening to CNN like 4 hours a day, and they just got, some of the things that happened with this election, like CNN just got got shot down as a media station because of some false things that they reported, and they report things with a, more of an agenda, because you also have to look at, media and government, where they're getting their funding at. So,
Of course.
one theory I had is like, I found it interesting that all of Europe shut down at the beginning of the elections.
Yep.
I just find it interesting that it coincided. Are the numbers going up? Well, if more people are getting tested, you're going to have more numbers. But people focus on that. They should focus on, the recovery rate, because the recovery rate is really high. It's like 98, 99%.
But then this is the problem, right? This is the problem we're having, that people are, all they're doing is listening to media, and the media is telling them that numbers of, I mean, the whole thing about wearing masks and all that kind of stuff that's around us right now. I mean, 4 billion viruses, and one virus is going to attack you, and you've got to wear a mask for that. I mean, it's not,
Well,
I don't get it.
it's not just that one virus. I mean, anything can go through a porous element like a mask, and so it doesn't protect. Like if someone goes, well, it protects, it's for respect. It's not for respect. I don't believe it's respectful to somebody else to wear a mask when you are potentially harming yourself. I don't think that's respectful. And I don't think, it's just like, if you have comorbidities that are known, or you have a tendency towards certain things, wearing a mask for you would be essential. And it's just a little extra protection, but it doesn't protect you from things going in or out. And so you have to, it's like, for me, something has to, I make sense of complicated and challenging and convoluted situations, so that I can find a quicker, better way to get through it, so you can get unstuck and move forward. It doesn't happen, this isn't computing in my brain. I still haven't computed that.
So
do I wear
then,
a mask?
I mean,
sure.
when there are so many people out there that, and doctors who are also talking about that it's going out of proportion out here, like what the government's trying to do to the people, and the people who are listening, okay, abiding by the rules, abiding by the law, everything, but then there are people who are not listening. I mean, how do you come to a control over it? And if it doesn't control, economies are down, stress, trauma, all that kind of stuff starts coming up, people's health goes down. I was just listening to someone the other day, and they were telling me that psychologists were doing amazingly well, because people are going to them with that they can't go to work, they can't go to the office, they can't meet their colleagues, they can't go out to friends, they can't go to the pub, whatever it is. And it's a booming business for them right now. But then,
Well, it's a booming business. I mean, all doctors are frontline. So, and a lot of people are going to have a lot of issues because they're not eating right. They're not thinking right. they're not feeling good, they're not moving better. There's a
Yep.
whole slew of issues. And so when people are used to having that social ability, like to go out, like I don't get the governor in California making people saying like, well, when you go into the restaurant, you got to walk and sit down. And then you have to, and then he wants you, between chewing, he wants you to put the mask back on. So I just, I mean, that's absurd to me. And, and so when you go into some place, I mean, like, let's take grocery stores, for example. People drive to the grocery store. A lot of times people in the States, before they go to the grocery store, they usually have gas stations connected with them, so they get gasoline.
Yep.
Then they go in the grocery store. They don't
Yep.
wash their hands, but they take their dirty hands and they put their mask on. Then they go into the grocery store. There's no place to wash your hands, nor is it mandated to wash hands, because touching hands to face is one of the primary ways that if something
Germs get to
is
you.
contaminated,
Yep.
and get to your face, not just COVID. I mean,
Yep.
the whole slew. And then they go into some store and they're touching everything. And then they go out, they touch their dirty money, and then they go and they pay for their grocery, and then they leave and they still don't put anything on. And then the guy takes the
grocery, puts it in the boot,
grocery,
pulls the steering wheel, gets.
Well, then he sprays it with stuff. In the States they're playing it with like benzyl, with a benzyl ring, which is carcinogenic. So, and if you look at some of the side effects from having high exposure, this is a person standing outside spraying the thing. You can have tremors. You can have a brain seizure from this stuff if you have too much exposure. It's toxic, So, but the point is, and then they go home and then they spray their food or they wash their food and they put it in the refrigerator. So it's just like, why if COVID is so contagious, why aren't they making people wash their hands as they enter a grocery store?
Exactly.
That's the primary where it's being
Exactly.
passed around. So you want it to be passed around a lot more? Do that more. But I don't get where walking into a restaurant and sitting down, like the virus knows, like, oh, that person doesn't have a mask on. I'm gonna jump over there. I mean, if you look in the hospital.
This is exactly what we've been talking about. I mean, me and my friends have been talking about exactly that. I mean, it's like COVID knows that this was a perfect example.
It's smart.
It's like, yeah, it's smart. It's got its own brain, So we were sitting in a restaurant and we were sitting on the table, right? And one of my other friends walked in and he sat down. This guy's like freaky. So he was like, where's mask is, you don't need the mask on the table because COVID is right now, right there. It's away from us because we're on the table. It doesn't come to us. It's like,
well, some people, it's like if you sneeze, I haven't seen anybody sneeze in 6 months. And I haven't seen anybody cough. So that projects supposedly 27 feet, right? So it doesn't come out of your mouth and go, oh, I'm going to take a left turn and go over here. It does. Exactly. If you spray, it would probably go out like this, but most people, now when they cough, or unfortunately if they sneeze, they use their hand. They should be using their elbow when they sneeze, and they should wash their hands frequently and not use the alcohol things. I saw somebody do a demo on YouTube, and where they had the container to sterilize your hands, and then the person went and they washed their hands, they let it dry, they washed their hands, and that's what they did first. Then they took a plate and they put the stuff on the plate, right? They let it dry, they went and washed the plate, and then they came over and they lit a match and the plate bursted into flames. So there's residual. It's very flammable.
I mean, I don't even use anywhere I go.
I use colloidal silver.
I'm not wearing a
mask. I use colloidal silver gel.
And I'm not.
That's what I use. I have it in my car, and I have a spray also. But it just makes I'm thinking like, okay, so there's before COVID, they just got them putting out some big article about how bad hand sanitizers are. So now, because of COVID, they're saying you got to use it, but alcohol doesn't kill the virus.
It
I'm
kills
a
the
little
bacteria.
confused.
I don't know whether it kills the
You know,
bacteria or not. But anyways, I mean,
well,
it's been
bacteria is
absolutely,
different than a virus.
of
A
course.
virus is like a rose bush.
Yeah.
You know, when you have a rose bush and you have certain temperatures in the roses bloom, right?
Yeah.
Viruses is like that. If you don't have the right environment, they're not going to manifest their life. And a virus is just a virus. A virus is not the disease. That's a big thing that people don't get. And of course, a lot of, the media doesn't even, focus on that because they want you to think that coronavirus is the bad guy. Coronavirus is, it's just like, was it man-made? I read interesting articles that said yes and no. But, the thing is, it's like, people's immune systems, people are sick and they don't know. Their immune systems are crap. And when things hit the fan, you got to go back to basics. You've got to go
Absolutely.
revamp everything and go like, so what is it that my grandmother did that worked? What
Yep.
is it that my mother did that worked? And what is it that makes sense? Because if it doesn't make sense, don't do it.
Absolutely.
That's a good message.
It's been a great intake on your thoughts on what's going on right now. So much to share with the world. I mean, when they come back and they see this live session, what we've spoken about in terms of it, I'm sure they'll see some value to it. But it's been really good talking to you. Before you go, I ask this to all the guests that come on here, and I want to ask you that we've seen a lot of negative impact of what's going on in the world right now on the economy, on people's life, mentally, physically, emotionally, everything. A lot of negativity around us. What positive advice would you like to share with the world today so that they can take that on board and move forward in life?
Well, the things that that make people the sickest are their thoughts. So getting a handle on your thoughts is so, so, so important. So, and one of the things that you can do to help you sleep better, because a lot of people have the sleep problems,
Yep.
is make sure the lights are out early. You get off the computer a good hour and a half before you want to go to sleep.
Yep.
The other thing that you can do is, like, if you're sleeping and you can't figure out why you're up, you're tossing, you're turning, then sit your butt up in bed and say, what is it that's bothering me?
Okay.
And if there's a thought process going on in your head, whatever it is, if there's something you can do about it, right then and there, get up and do it. Get it off the chart. And if there's not, pick a piece of paper up and write down your list, because tomorrow morning is not going to change, and then you can rest assured tomorrow morning you can get up and you can go tackle that. Because so many
Absolutely.
people go to tackle the day, especially women, they tackle the day and then they're like, at the end of the day, they're depleted. And if they
Yep.
keep on repeating that, they're going to get really, really sick.
Exactly.
And then also, it affects their relationships with their husband, their kids, their mother, their father. They're always doing something else for somebody else, and they don't have enough time for self-care for themselves.
Yep.
So cocoa butter is a woman's best friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I tell that to my wife. Super amazing.
Yep, cocoa butter is it helps it stabilizes you. It's good for stress.
Sure, I'll keep that in mind. But it's been absolutely amazing talking to you. I think one live session with you is not enough. I need to have a few more where we talk about different subjects and bring that in. So thank you so much, Dr. Pat. I shall see you
Thank
again soon.
you.
Not a problem. Take care. And
All
I'll
right,
speak to you soon.
namaste. All right,
Take
thank you.
care.
Have a beautiful evening.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
So, wow, that cleared it up. I mean, COVID, everything. It was super amazing talking to Dr. Pat. Thank you to her for joining me today, sharing the knowledge, spreading the positivity, and thank you to all the viewers that tuned in. I shall see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.